Well, good morning, everybody. I wanted to start off today by just looking back quickly at the extent of the cold air we've been seeing for the last 7 or 8 days and just kind of understand how this is going to transition between now and the next 4 or 5 days, because there is still one more shot of colder air coming. As you can tell here, the main corridor through which this cold air has come through has really been guided by the Rocky Mountains after being displaced out of Alaska and Greenland. It's come right through this corridor, making it pretty far into the south with brutally cold temperatures. Now, I'm in Kentucky today, and as of yesterday, I think the coldest place in the country was actually in Kentucky when you look at the absolute temperatures. So that was the end of the first round of the colder air, and the second round is starting right now. Now, I'll come back to that in a second, but I just want to keep thinking about these temperatures because I was watching an animation here of places that set records or approached records, and you can just see through the 13th, 14th, and 15th how cold that air was, and it continued to sink south in the 16th and 17th. And round 2 is just now beginning in this area, and it's going to be pressing into the south very, very quickly. Now, to put it into context, this time period of the 10th of January to the 17th of January, that small window of time, when you look back historically and compare it to every other January 10th to January 17th, going back to 1893, this is where things rank. So there are a few places here in Nebraska and Kansas where this is now the new all-time coldest, week of the 10th through the 17th when compared to history. So just a little context here to think about as this hits, a major part of our country where we have just a tremendous amount of ag resources from, our Great Plains in the winter wheat belt. This is part of the Western Corn Belt. We do a lot of livestock throughout this area, and there's many, many other crops that are grown here as well. So just wanted to add some context to this overall. Now this morning, I'm down here in Bowling Green, and it's much, much more mild than it has been. But this second round of really cold air is already sinking through, the north interior of the United States. The reason for the warm-up, believe it or not, in this region is largely because of the quick shift in the wind direction. Now, two of the things we're going to be talking about in the near term are going to be kind of the presence of this frontal boundary right in through here and how we're going to watch a system kind of roll along that. But then we're also going to be talking about two times, where we're going to move high pressure out of the middle part of the country to the southeast and what that does to kind of open things up to more southerly transport of warmer and actually at times much more moist air. So this is just your winds this morning. That's the south wind that kind of warmed things up through this whole section of the country. But as you can see, coming out of the Canadian prairie where we've kind of been able to redefine what cold means. I mean, there's been times up here where the temperatures have been all the way down to minus 40, which, by the way, in case you didn't know this, minus 40 degrees in Fahrenheit is the same as Celsius. It is the only time which those temperature scales cross. I also want to bring up one last thing. We talked yesterday about the strong winds that are coming off of the kind of Rocky Mountains throughout here. And you can see even early this morning, those winds are still continuing to crank. Very, very strong winds in this area. All right, bigger picture, about 6:20 this morning, we're looking at the all hazards weather map. So that frontal boundary is going to serve for the source of the winter weather advisories that are here. The warm air that's kind of opening up is going to push a little system right into this area, which is why we have the winter weather advisories. But the shading that you see behind it, this is all wind chill advisories and watches and warnings that are coming out with the colder air that's going to push in behind this system for this weekend into early next week, but not lasting. The other big part of this is what's still going on in the Northwest. We have winter storm warnings in place in parts of Montana and Idaho and Wyoming. And then this has been an area that we've been talking about all week. In fact, going back to last week, having the risk of ice. And this ice problem continues to get worse and worse. Now this morning, just looking through Twitter, I want to show you a post that comes from Tyler Kranz. Now Tyler has given permission to post his video, to watch it here with his permission. And it's just showing you what some of the ice looks like through parts of Oregon. So numerous reports of damage in this area, and it's something we cannot push aside as one of the major areas that's been hit. So we've seen this throughout a broad section of Oregon, the Willamette Valley. It's moved up into parts of Washington, and we're going to continue to see problems in the near term because of the shallow Arctic air mass that is in place right here, hasn't gone anywhere, but we're still getting the overrunning over the top of it. So I want to show you what I mean by going straight to the high-res NAM model. So a couple things to watch out. You're going to watch a very weak system try to come through here, maybe a little bit of mixed precipitation on it. There'll be snow that rolls kind of through a corridor like this on that frontal boundary, and they're going to watch parts of the Pacific Northwest. Pay close attention to the Great Lakes as well as the winds shift from coming from this direction to coming from that direction. We talked a bit about it yesterday. So a lot is going to change on this animation just in a short while. So playing through the middle of the day today, you can already see the snow spreading here, the precipitation transitioning here as it goes through parts of the Mid-South, all the way up to the Ohio River. And then we see in the Pacific Northwest, you can see that shade of color I used to denote where there's ice, that there is still more accumulating in that area. Now, as we just play this through this evening, snow starts to spread over Kentucky. I kind of feel like I brought it with me here. And then you can see some light snow across parts of the Midwest and then the lake effect going. As we go forward, it's going to be this high pressure cell behind it. It's going to deliver a lot of cold air. But notice we're out here now to 2 a.m. on Friday morning, and this whole region continues to see the risk of additional ice accumulating. Now, going beyond this into early tomorrow morning, Friday, the low curls up into parts of New England, bringing in some light snow. We'll take a look at just how much in a moment. The lake effect changes direction, so we're going to get these, shore parallel lake effect snow bands coming off of like Michigan, which is this kind of a very interesting orientation compared to the rest of the lakes. And we'll see these little lake effect vortices coming off. It's going to be really neat to see where they hit. So, anywhere from Chicago to South Bend and everywhere in between could get some of this. You notice that all the way through 10 a.m. Friday, still see that risk of ice here in parts of the Pacific Northwest. And then getting out into Friday afternoon and evening is when we finally start to see the hope of an end of this ice storm that region's been enduring. Now, playing beyond this, high pressure is going to build in. And just like I mentioned a moment ago, it comes in out of the north and west, brings with it brutally cold air, but it's where it sets up after that. And just remember, the high is here, so I'll just kind of close in a contour there for you. The flow around high goes in the direction of that arrow. So once that moves into this area, it's going to start to open up the Gulf and for another round of warmer air. But by the end of this on Saturday, you're just still in this mode where the jet stream's targeting the western United States. It's kind of extended pushing into this area, and that's why we continue to see wetter conditions. So let's get a couple of probability maps. This is just a 3-day forecast from the Weather Prediction Center looking at the chances of getting another 1/10 of an inch of ice. And as we know, just small quantities of ice are enough to be absolutely devastating, like you saw in the video a few moments ago. So that's the chance of getting another 1/10 of an inch of ice. And here's the chance for snowfall across the country, at least getting 2 inches. So there's going to be a corridor in through here where there's 1 to 2 inches right in through this area. And then coming off the Great Lakes, those numbers will be much higher. But we do have the chance of maybe 2, 3, 4 inches of snow in parts of the Ohio Valley moving into the interior portions of New England out of this next system that's coming through. And that'll be adding to some of the snow that we've had over the last 2 days. So here's the tail end of the previous system. We've got the lake effect behind it, and this is the snow that's coming in with the current system, the one that's made the ice storm in parts of the Pacific Northwest. So what happens as we transition into next week is this. You see that high that I mentioned? It's now going to sit right here. It's going to open up the Gulf, and as it does so, just really begin this transport of moisture into this area. What happens in the west is we just continue to get decent flow coming off of the Pacific, which is why we keep that area wetter overall. So we put all this into kind of a single map, and you look at this and say, well, this is kind of what our pattern's dominated by for the next 10 days. So as that opens up, starting on like the 22nd through most of next week, this whole corridor is going to go back over wetter. And then you can just see the western United States continuing to stay above average with the flow coming almost directly out of the west for a while. But what flow like that tends to do is not produce big lee troughs or big lee cyclones. When I say lee, I'm talking about the leeward side of the Rocky Mountains, the downwind side of them. And that's why we see a significant portion of the plains kind of left out of the more significant precipitation. I mean, the plains extending clear up into the Canadian prairie with this pattern. We just need to get a big low that kind of curls up right over the top of the mountains to spin something up here to start to deliver some snow to places that have been really missing it. Now, in today's briefing, I'm not going to be able to compare the GFS to the European model. I struggled this morning getting internet access at my hotel room. I tried every Wi-Fi I could find, including the one that was called FBI Van, which is a fantastic Wi-Fi name. But finally got some access, and I discovered that the GFS run I tried to make this morning failed. So I'm only going to be showing you the European. So sorry, I've been talking over a graphic here. I just want you to know the European is outperforming the GFS by a little bit right now. And I'm also going to compare the new forecast from the European to the two machine learning models as well, and kind of give you a bit of an explainer why I haven't been using them much lately. So just one big map today. All right, let's follow this up with where the high-res NAM has already taken us. So here comes that light snow right in through this corridor. You got the low that comes up through parts of the Mid-South, making it over toward the Blue Ridge Mountains by early Friday morning. And here's the continued ice risk that we saw in the high-res NAM. So that low curls through New England. There's the high-pressure cell. Here's the continual flow coming into the west. You can see some of the precip totals there. And then what we're going to wait for is going into Sunday and Monday. As that high pressure sinks and the flow just keeps pushing moisture into the west, we're going to watch that high pressure cell set up here by Monday, and now you start to see it open up the Gulf. All right, so that opening up is going to be met with a couple of interesting components to the flow. Models have increased the strength of this high pressure cell. Now what's the significance? That means it's going to try to be pushing a bit more cooler air into this region while this high pressure cell starts to open up to the warm air. And now that's getting me worried, or just thinking a bit about maybe some additional ice in this area. What's also interesting about this is we do have a lot of snow that's already sitting on the ground here. And we talked earlier this week about how snowpack can really influence the lower atmosphere temperatures. And sometimes the models can't get that right. So the snow influences those temperatures. And therefore, we've now seen some risk of going back over to snow by next Tuesday morning right in through this area. So again, there's no big deep low here. It's just the sandwiching of one high pressure cell and another that gives us this region of what we call frontogenesis, where there's the creation of a front. So that's out there next Tuesday morning. We play this out there to next Tuesday afternoon and evening, and then we press here into early Wednesday, and it just stays open. Moisture continues through Thursday, and we just see that warmer air advecting farther and farther to the north, delivering with it the chances for rain. Now, I cannot tell you with any confidence where this rain-snow boundary is going to be all of next week. Some indications would suggest that it's going to be following right along where the current snow pack is deepest. So maybe it's right here. That could be an early indication. I don't have a ton of confidence on that. What I can tell you is this is where the snow currently sits. So this is what our snow water equivalent map looks like. And we will eat away at a lot of this, and we'll start to eat away with some warmer temperatures at the snowpack here. But its survivability, given how deep it is in this area, will be critical to the temperature forecast. So let's go ahead and just take a look at the operational run on total snowfall. And let's just play this out through where we feel like we have some confidence. Let's just get this out there to Sunday afternoon. So again, maybe a 1 to 2 inch event right in through this corridor with some lighter snow around it. We can see coming off the Great Lakes, there's that shore parallel band developing on Lake Michigan. But we could have a 2, 3, 4 inch event here with maybe higher amounts pushing up against the westward side of the Appalachian Mountains and then coming off the eastern side of the Great Lakes. In the west, where there's just continual flow, you just kind of watch the snowpack build up with time. And then going into next Tuesday and then through next Wednesday and Thursday, you can start to see where the models want to put back in some more snow here. Okay, but it's going to really depend on what that lower atmosphere temperature profile looks like. Now, throughout the west, this is not a major snowmaker, but we're still adding in the Cascades and in the Sierra Nevada. And you can see my color bar. We're getting up here in this 1 to 2 foot range, which would be excellent to see that snowpack continuing to be regained in that area. Okay, on the ice side of it, just want to show you this real quickly. We've discussed this. We've seen the risk of maybe a little bit of icing right in through here today, and mainly today. But then you notice that out there when that system comes out next Monday, Tuesday, I can't rule out the impact of a shallow air mass of cold air that could set up some overrunning and the risk of developing some mixed precipitation in here. So just watch this early next week, Tuesday, really Monday night through Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Just keep an eye on it. Okay, total precip. Let's just take this out and watch it getting added up here from the model. Now you'll notice that's through this weekend. The west will continue to add, but we're about to open up a big area in the central United States to some heavy precip right here. So this is next Tuesday, getting into Wednesday and Thursday and Friday. In fact, I'm just going to run this out a full 10 days. I know we're using an operational run, but we'll look at the probabilities in a moment. So the west, we got this idea down. Weak but still persistent westerly flow. No deep storm systems coming into the plains. Excuse me. No deep storm systems coming into the plains. And then the opening up of the Gulf. And just take a look at where these colors sit on my color bar. we're talking about some relatively heavy rainfall amounts. Now, I haven't been showing a lot of the new machine learning models, and my reason for that is my only place to access them. If there's other places I need to know, but my only place to access them is from the ECMWF website, and I just don't like it. I don't like the colors. I can't, I can't change and overlay states. I can't put numbers on it. I don't have access to this data yet. They've got a hold of it. But I've been toggling back and forth between their Fuxi model and then also their GraphCast model, just looking at total precipitation. So let's go to the wetter of the two, and I'm just going to show you here if I click on this. This deep red is 100 millimeters. So right now, the model is going after 100 millimeters is 4 inches. So going after some very heavy precipitation in this region. Now, what's important about that, because you saw it in the operational run as well, is that when we get the new drought monitor today, remember that this one was released with only data through January 9th. The new one that's going to come out today has a full extra week, and we had some very heavy rainfall in this area. We watched the Mississippi recover, and I just showed you that right over the top of this major drought area, they're expecting significant amounts of rainfall. So I can show it to you another way. Let's just go out there and look at the probability of getting an inch of total precipitation. And this gets us out there to next Tuesday morning. So between now and then, it's only the West Coast. We start to open this up Monday night to Tuesday morning to better moisture, and then it just continues to spread around that high pressure cell. So that takes you out 10 days looking at the probability of an inch. Well, let's step this up. We'll probably get a new model run in here when I click on that. Darn it, of course we did. So let's go back and switch you. I'm going to take you back out there to, there it is, there's day 10. That's the chance of 2, and here's the chance of 4. So quite wet down in this area, so we got to pay close attention to that. Now, since the beginning of the year, this is where we've had our precipitation ranks map kind of set us up. So you notice the reason I'm so concerned about getting this pattern to shift is I'd like to get some moisture return back here, excuse me, into the northern plains and Canadian prairie. That's been a missed spot, but a lot of the rest of the country's seen a lot of moisture now. You can also see parts of the southwest being drier, and with all that moisture coming into this area and eventually moving east, we're just going to add a whole lot more to regions that have already picked up quite a bit. Overall, the pattern out there by day 10 doesn't link any of these next few systems to really, really Arctic air. After the cold air comes through, really tomorrow, Saturday, and early Sunday, we're kind of done with it for a little while. We return it to parts of Greenland and Alaska, and you see that there's higher heights in through here. So despite the fact that we get systems coming through, there's no link to really, really cold air. Now, what I'm paying close attention to is out there at the beginning of February. This will be the one thing I'm going to watch right here, and the trough that's over Greenland and the Canadian archipelago. Because there's some indications, once we get out there, that we could get a fading of this cold air and an extension of kind of the North Pacific jet to start to make a change happen at some point beyond the first couple of days of February. So not right away, but later. And this has been echoed for a while in some of the longer term stuff I've been discussing. I'll give you a new perspective on it in a moment. But I do want to show you that as it stands, most of the week 2 pattern wants to go a little drier in California, wet in the northwest. And then we're just seeing the tail end of how that high pressure cell opens up, the Gulf of Mexico here in these forecasts. So very consistent from the GFS ensemble to the European and to the CPC. Okay, a little bit longer range outlook. This is the new update from the ECMWF from the 22nd of January to the 22nd of February. Now understand that a lot of this is coming next week, which is included in this time frame. But I want you to note how the West continues to be targeted, and we just need to see what this can do to continue to revive moisture throughout the West and build snowpack in the West. And then when will we get a few of these systems to kind of tap back into colder air? It's the arrival of colder air that I'm most uncertain of. When does it come back after this last round penetrates through the country over the next 3 days? So that cold air looks something like this. Here's Thursday morning's low temperatures, so today. There's Friday. Look, here's our next charge of Arctic air coming through. On that high pressure cell, we could have Saturday morning lows approaching minus 20 right here, centered almost on Omaha. But look at all this mild air that's in the west. So coldest for the southeast will likely be Sunday. We could get that frost line right down here just north of Disney World. So that's where we're seeing that go to. And then as we play this forward, this is Monday into Tuesday and Wednesday. So we could see the temperatures not just recover, but recover, like 60 degrees in terms of where they're going to be versus where they're going to be in the next 2 days to where they'll be by next Wednesday. A 60-degree warm-up, taking us back to this kind of temperature pattern. And that's been echoed for a while in the long-range European and GFS, the ones that take us out there into week 2. So this is day 5 through 10 temperature anomalies from the GFS this morning when the cold air returns to Alaska and Greenland. And here's day 10 through 15. A lot of consistency in this forecast, showing us mild to get all the way into the beginning of February. Now, you know what I'm watching. And what I'm watching is the shifting around of the MJO. Does it hang out here for a while, or does it start to move its way back over to these colder phases? I'm still trying to understand this, but I've unfortunately been traveling just a lot the last few days, and I need time in front of my computer just to stare at that. And I spent 8 hours on a plane yesterday and did that early. So I'll get home and diagnose this tonight and keep looking at it over the weekend. I think I'll be able to present you a better case early next week as to where I think this is going in the longer term. So the rest of February, getting into March. We'll also give you a new spring forecast. I can't wait for the new CPC data to come out. So here's what I want to finish with. I want to show you right now a great website. You've seen me show it in the past, but I have some new viewers, so it's a good one. TropicalTidbits.com. Levi Cowan runs this. He's great, the absolutely brilliant scientist. Here's what I want you to do. When you go to Tropical Tidbits, come over here to the Analysis tab. And I want you to click here on Ocean Analysis in this case, because he has a sequence of maps that I find quite instructive. Now, the time series at the bottom shows us where El Nino is. We talked about it peaking right just after Christmas, and since then it's been backing off. But what's kind of fun about this site is that you can also just look at the change maps. And what you notice here is that over the last week, we've started to see the waters in this area cool. They've not stayed hot. They've started to back off a bit in temperature. So we've been discussing the speed at which this El Nino slows down and eventually collapses is going to be critical. So that's why I really want to see some of the new CPC updates to add to the NMME and the ECMWF we've been talking about now for about 10 days. Okay, with all of that, I want to finish up with a bit on South America. And this narrative hasn't changed too much. The drier conditions that we are enduring right now in the north center growing areas, we expect that to really change as we go through the end of this month and start February. You see the 7-day window looking at the last 7 days of January just continues to be well forecast to be much above average in this area. Now, harvest pace right now is just at the very beginning, and there have been reports of the early planted crop in Mato Grosso to be well below what was expected. But we've talked about the extent of that drought, right? Driest October, November, December on our records, and we had endured incredible heat. What has not yet been harvested is a lot of the crops south. Now, this dryness you see down here in southern Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina, not a major concern right now. This doesn't have me worried given how much moisture's been in place. But I'm just going to make the statement one more time this week. What does this do for that early to middle harvest pace? How does the heavy rain slow things down? That's what I want to know. So I'll keep an eye on it. I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning. Until then, have a good one. Thank you.